Thanks, Renata. I think we should get going. Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2021 annual events and awards ceremony of the Academy of Science, jointly hosted with SAIS, the Young Academy of Science. It is my pleasure to welcome you all and all protocol observed. I can't see who all is in attendance, but I wish to acknowledge all dignitaries and in particular our invited guest, Professor Ismail Sir Geldin, all the way from Egypt. Thank you, sir, for giving us of your time and being willing to participate as our guest speaker today. Colleagues, it's indeed an honor to host this event. We wait for this every single year because this is a celebration. Unfortunately, circumstances do not allow us to host it in person. Normally between the AGM and the events, we have a little bit of a cocktail event and people can engage and meet old friends and make new ones. But sadly, with the COVID pandemic, etc., that's not possible. Nonetheless, the virtual means of engagement allow us to congratulate the new members of the Academy that will be inducted later today. So welcome to one and all, as well as the Young Academy. And I welcome the co-chairs of SAIS, as well as their new members. ASSAf also at this stage would like to thank our President of Council, Professor Jonathan Jansen, and all the council members participating, as well as those who are supportive of everything that we do as the Secretariat. And I want to take this opportunity of thanking council members, standing committee members, our co-editors of our journal, the South African Journal of Science, Quest Magazine, associate editors, and all who contribute one way or the other as a spoke for the ASSAf wheel to turn in motion. Thank you to you all, but hopefully you'll have a proper vote of thanks at the end. At this stage, I will now like to invite our President, Professor Jonathan Jansen, to take the lead of introducing our guest speaker. And please just relax, enjoy the event, and yeah, let's get the show going. So with these few words, I wish to now welcome Professor Jonathan Jansen to take us into the next event. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much, Shimla, Professor Sudyal. Appreciate it. I am very excited this evening, not only because we are honoring two gold medal awardees, two outstanding South African scientists, but also, of course, the recognition of the new members of both the Young Academy and, of course, the Senior Academy of Science. This is an exciting event. More so because we have an incredible speaker this evening. A few months ago, I spoke with Dr. Malapu Kobela, who used to be the head of the National Research Foundation. And he said to me, have you ever met Ismail Sir Geldin? And I said, no. And he looked at me as if I had committed some crime. You know, he says, you know Mandela, but you don't know Serageldin. I said, look, I'm guilty, you know, I'm sorry. And so I am very, very excited to be here this evening, to welcome all of you as Didimla, and to introduce our keynote. Now, it is a mark of a great scholar that when you ask him or her to send you you know, a bio to read on such an occasion, they send a very, very slim version of what they've accomplished. So I thought to myself, there is no way that you can fit onto one page the amazing achievements of Dr. Ismail Sir Geldin. So I, as the kid said, I Googled him. And sure enough, there was this amazing set of accomplishments that don't appear in his very modest CV. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, about both what he gave us, but also what he left out. Now, Dr. Ismail Sir Geldin is the founding director, as many of you know, of the great Bibliotheca Alexandrina, the new library of Alexandria, which was inaugurated in 2022. He is currently the Emeritus Librarian and a member of the Board of Trustees of the Library of Alexandria. He serves as a chair and member of a number of advisory committees for academic research, scientific and international institutions, including as co-chair of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center and as patron of the International Science Council. He has held many international positions, including as vice president of the World Bank. He co-chaired the Africa Union's high-level panel for biotechnology, and again for science, technology, and innovation in 2012-13. He was also a member of the ICON panel for the review of the Internet of the Future. Dr. Sir Geldin is the recipient, as you can imagine, of too many awards to mention, the most recent being the Public Welfare Medal by the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C., Commander of the Order of Arts and Letters awarded by the government of France, and the presidential medals from the republics of Azerbaijan, Montenegro, Albania, and Macedonia. Now, what did he not tell us? He did not tell us that he has produced over 100 books. He did not tell us that he has 40 honorary doctorates. He did not tell us that he's a graduate of the great Cairo University and has 2 degrees, a master's and PhD from Harvard University. He was once described as, quote, the most intelligent man in Egypt. And immediately I knew there was a problem with colonial borders. Why restrict this to Egypt? For somebody who has accomplished so much on the world stage. He delivered, and Dr. Sir Geldin, fortunately, has many connections to South Africa. For example, he delivered the Mandela Lecture in 2011. One of the panels that I'm really fascinated by, that he sat on, apart from biotechnology, is the World Digital Library. So you can see here is somebody that brings to us study of the humanities and the sciences a much broader vision than many of us trained in very specific and limited fields. What I really enjoyed in what he did send us was a summation of what he believes, his credo. And I want to read this to you because it was very touching. The world is my home, he says. Humanity is my family. Nonviolence is my creed. Peace, justice, equality, and dignity for all is my purpose. Engagement, rationality, tolerance, dialogue, learning, and understanding are my means. With these outstretched hands, we welcome all those who share these beliefs. Great honor for me to welcome you to deliver the 2021 keynote lecture on this occasion of awards of the Academy of Science of South Africa. I hope you feel very welcome. If you could just unmute, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be invited to address you today, this special day, when the Academy celebrates the successes of its members and renews its ranks with a new cohort of rising eminent scientists. It therefore seems particularly apposite that my remarks should focus on 3 broad topics. First, why do we have academies of science? Why did they come from? And do we still need them today? Second, are their traditional roles affected by the context of our times? We are witnessing truly revolutionary transformations in science and technology. But societies are also in the grip of hyperconnectivity, social media, massive disinformation, in parallel with confronting existential challenges that require global responses, from climate change to pandemics to food security. And third, these reflections will also address how academies of science today can respond to the challenges of the present and the future, and ensure that they fulfill their obligations to society, while also engaging the younger generation of young scientists to play their role in building today and inventing tomorrow. So let's start with the origins of the academies. Well, Plato founded his school called the Academy in ancient Athens in 428 BC as an institute for the systematic pursuit of philosophical and scientific teaching and research in philosophy, mathematics, and rhetoric. His most distinguished pupil would be Aristotle, and for 2.5 centuries, the institution would remain a focus of intellectual life. And many have argued that it constitutes the first establishment of a university. But arguably, it would be here on African soil, in the heart of ancient Alexandria, that the first true global academy would be created. In 288 BC, under the inspired advice of Demetrius of Phaleron, Ptolemy I would create the Temple to the Muses, or the Museon in Greek and Museum in Latin, to which the 100 greatest minds of the ancient world from all disciplines, all countries, would be invited and given quarters and a chance to debate among themselves, supported by a botanical garden, a zoological garden, a dissection room, and a library. Now, the library would grow and grow and grow until its name would cover the whole complex, whose existence produced an explosion of knowledge unrivaled in any period in history from Africa. Now, notably, these early examples joined both teaching and research and other institutions, especially in ancient India, for example, where Takshashila University and Nalanda are counted among the oldest universities in the world. By the 5th century of our current age, Europe would sink into what we call the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, a period of roughly 1,000 years where the church was dominant and science would be largely ignored. That would last until the Renaissance, starting in the 15th century, would gradually bring new life to Western civilization in Europe, and the subsequent Enlightenment would bring the rationality of the European scientific revolution into the mainstream. But it was a slow process of transformation. For Galileo, the great Galileo would still be tried by the Inquisition in 1633 for his support of the Copernican heliocentric theory of the cosmos. But in that dark millennium, there were small candles of light. The University of Bologna was founded in 1088, and having never been out of operation, holds the title of the oldest university in the world, at least within the Western canon. Now it, along with the universities of Oxford, which was founded in 1096, University of Paris, metonomically known as the Sorbonne, established in 1150, together with Cambridge, established in 1209, all constituted the oldest institutions of higher learning in Europe, all established during what is called the Dark Ages. But my friends, during these Dark Ages, right here on Africa, there was a golden age of openness and learning all along the northern coast of Africa. From Morocco to Egypt, great institutions of learning were being developed with bridges to Europe through our outreach in the Iberian Peninsula and in the island of Sicily. Among the earliest such institutions is the Qarawiyyin Mosque and University, established by an Arab woman, Fatma al-Fihri, in Fas in Morocco in 859. And then Al-Azhar Mosque and University, established in the newly formed city of Cairo in 970. But all of North Africa stretched eastward to India, and the openness of these societies was reflected in the adoption of the Indian decimal numbers and the zero. Zero is very important, to which we added algebra and which we then passed on to Europe. But these are the ancient origins. What we think of as academies of science today are the continuation of the 17th century movement represented by the rise of three major academies. The Society of the Lincei, or the Lynxes, founded in Italy in 1603 by its friend Federico Orsesi, whose most formidable member was Galileo Galilei. Then the UK's Royal Society, which was founded in 1660, and which many consider the prototype of the modern Academy of Sciences. Now, from the outset, the Royal Society aspired to combine the role of research institute with that of clearinghouse for knowledge and a forum for the arbitration of scientific disputes. It also became the publisher of an eminent journal as well as occasional papers and books. And finally, the French Academy of Sciences, founded a few years later in 1666 by Louis XIV to encourage and protect the spirit of French scientific research. Now, all these institutions and others like them would flourish in the period of the Enlightenment and the European scientific revolution, where the members of these institutions adopted the empirical method, reinvented sciences, and replaced the superstitions that had prevailed in much of the 1,000 years of the Middle Ages. But a special word is needed for the American academies, for they were born in the crucible of war. Indeed, John Adams founded the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in Boston in 1780, at the height of the American War of Independence, when he and all his colleagues were at risk of being hanged as traitors to the British Crown if the War of Independence failed. I saw no contradiction in founding an academy in the midst of a war, and in fact, he invited George Washington to be a member, and Washington sent his acceptance from the front where he was commanding the troops fighting for independence. Adams, who would go on to become the second president of the United States, actually reflected on the need to develop the scope of concerns of all educated people in the nation and the academy as the society. But it is quite interesting also that the most recent and arguably the most eminent academy of science in the world today, the US National Academy of Sciences, which was founded in 1863 under President Abraham Lincoln, again in the midst of or almost at the peak of the Civil War. And it seems that the American academies, born in the crucible of war, intended to magnify the calls of the better angels of our nature, as they also elevated the vision of the nation, despite being engaged in war, remaining committed to the idea of the pursuit of knowledge and the necessity of the adoption of rationality and enlightened values. Now, from that background, there was a major evolution in the 20th century. Science and scientific research have transformed our societies as they brought us so many of the benefits that we all take for granted. Ample food production, improved health, reduced mortality, better education, and improved well-being. And gradually, as science advanced the boundaries of our knowledge, the system that transforms that new knowledge into new and innovative technologies and processes, often referred to as STI, for science, technology, and innovation, took shape. And our societies evolved on a more profound level. We gradually awakened to the importance of our values such as human rights, the rejection of slavery and colonialism, and more recently, the protection of the environment and the promotion of sustainable development on a global scale. We have started to recognize the cost of past mistakes and the need for remedial action locally, nationally, regionally, and globally. We face global problems, from climate change to biodiversity loss, to food security, to the mismanagement of water, to pollution of the air we breathe, the water we drink, the soils and oceans we depend on. All these global problems and their local manifestations require the full mobilization of science and the best of our scientific capabilities. It is here that the academies of science have a signal role to play. it is here necessary to reflect on such issues as the globalization of the scientific discourse and scientific knowledge, and the need for a new multilateralism that promotes international collaboration between nations. And it is also pertinent to reflect on the structural links between the academies and the evolving structures of the research universities, especially in the USA and Europe, but elsewhere as well, where such an evolution is very notable. In a brilliant lecture to the American Council of Learned Societies, Rebecca Schub reflected on the links between academies of science and the evolving structure of the university in America. She rightly pointed to an earlier period where both the university and the academy were like a small village with shared values and where everyone knows everyone else. Then she tracked the evolution and transformation of that village into a large metropolis where disciplines get bureaucratized in structure and are highly differentiated and compartmentalized in function. In both the city and the university, technical experts and professional politicians run the public realm, while activism, driven by differentiated values, leads to confrontations on value-based positions covering everything from human rights to religion. Now, beyond the truth of that metaphor of the village and the metropolis, she also correctly perceived that there was something else that was emerging in this 21st century, a new sort of global city, which is all about networks and strategy, blurred boundaries and ever-changing projects, constructed identities, and a public that is at best in a clamorous dialogue and at worst a postmodern mayhem. Now, given what I believe is the accuracy of her observations, what of the learned societies and more specifically the academies of science in this 21st century? Well, to me, the role of the academy, in fact, all academies, share what ASSAf has identified as its core mission and its determination to use its membership as a brains trust, whose expertise and impartiality would help the nation define science-based policies and develop evidence-based regulations. We are, in all academies, devoted to the pursuit of knowledge, and we seek to build bridges between the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And like many of my colleagues, I would say, the academy is the guardian of science and the values of science. So to the pursuit of knowledge, let there be no impediment. But let us have boundaries of ethics and concern for risks to both guide such pursuits so that the pursuers of knowledge act within the bounds of wisdom. For not everything that is technically feasible is ethically desirable. And having attained such control and potential impact on our environment that we are justly referred to as living in the age of the Anthropocene, such guardrails to channel the energy of exploration and the zeal of discovery is needed. But who shall delineate these guidelines? Again, we turn to the academy. I think that many of the traditional functions that have evolved over the last 50 years are a hard core of commitments that the academy must make to remain true to its mission of excellence and service to science and society. And these include to enforce the highest standards of rigor and quality in scientific research, to establish ethical standards for research and for deployment of the technologies that are developed based on that research, to reach out to other institutions of learning in other parts of the world, to provide the most expert and talented specialists who can give governments their best and unsullied advice, and to promote science-based policies and to help devise better evidence-based regulations. But looking into the future, in addition, there are other functions that academies will have to engage with much more than it ever did before, precisely because of the fact that we are in this period of transformation where disciplines are merging, new techniques are becoming possible, just as new dangers become more apparent. Machine learning, frequently referred to as artificial intelligence, may embed racial and other biases and then slip into the mainstream of medical or other practice. The existing professional societies may drift into behaving more as trade unions concerned with protecting the benefits of their members rather than maximizing the quality of their services to society. Educational institutions in search of new business models in the age of distance learning and continuous upgrades will need help to reassess constantly what they are doing. The fact that many of the best of the professors are also members of the academy and the best of the practitioners are also members of the academy can have both a direct and indirect input into momentous changes that have just started to take place. Now, at the forefront of these changes is to help ensure that new models of education and training are designed and deployed with a view to help the next generation of young scientists not only get an excellent education, but also get a career path that will maximize their ability to grow and to contribute. And so in the coming decades of automation and artificial intelligence, the academy will probably take more inputs into educational system and the professional societies than it did before. But surely the most important change that the academies will face will be their role in helping confront the blatantly anti-science disinformation campaigns that all societies are now facing. Social media is being used to spread all sorts of conspiracy theories against vaccinations, GMOs, climate change, making the tasks of the decision makers much more difficult. Now, we cannot expect all scientists to be outstanding communicators or social media influencers, but there is a real need to increase and improve the amount of exposure that the public gets in receiving legitimate and trusted views on many of the issues of our times, from the pandemic to climate change. Academies and other learned societies can bring together the expertise and the skills of professional communicators and of their own members to provide explanation of science and technology issues, to contribute to public education and fight the anti-science campaigners. But the academies themselves also must broaden the realms of discussions in their own midst. Discussions that tackle such issues as ethics, intergenerational equity, inequalities, internal diversity, human rights, animal rights, so much more. But in the end, the environment in which we shall be functioning will be global as well as regional, national, and local. Many of the tools at our disposal will dwarf the abilities that were available to earlier generations. And the speed of scientific and technological change will exceed the wildest dreams of our parents. But for all that, we shall still retain many of the functions and values that have made the academies such a great addition to the institutions of civilizations. Many of the roles we have honed in the last half-century will stay, albeit in slightly different ways. For as T.S. Eliot said, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just been exposed to is a tour de force of ideas and institutions that prefigured the modern academy. What Dr. Sir Geldin did in the process was to cross time and space, to cover politics and science, to encourage rigor and relevance, and to remind us of ethics and equity. And you did that, sir, with such elegance and insight that you really set this evening up on a very high standard, which we so much appreciate. In the past few weeks, there was a lot of media reports on the government's attempts to revision the history curriculum in schools. I have my own suspicions that this is a completely useless exercise, not the least of which that it is pumped up with all kinds of nationalist politics and the like. But what you heard today is the history curriculum. What you heard today was a history of science in relation to academies. And if I could, Dr. Sir Geldin, just take a tape of your speech tonight and put it in every history curriculum, it would teach our children about science and decolonization and interconnection and solidarity in ways that I doubt anybody else could achieve for us. So with that said, thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for lifting the occasion. And thank you for being such an incredible brother in these difficult times. In the South, you up as a native of Egypt in the North, you feel very close. And I want you to know you are honored this evening. You are admired by all of us. And thank you, sir, for your example as a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you very much. I will now hand over, thank you, sir. I will now hand over to my colleague, Professor Sabia ASSAf, to get us into the other exciting parts of the evening, the inauguration of new ASSAf members. Sabia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay? Can everybody see the screen? Oh no,
we can see the screen. Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Serageldin, may I echo the congratulations on an excellent and inspiring presentation. Thank you very much for that. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and pleasure to inaugurate the 2021 ASSAf members as General Secretary. An academy by its very nature is a meritocracy. Your election by your peers is not only an affirmation of your high ranking as a scientist, but also a testament to your academic work in the service of society. I want to start by giving a very small introduction on the process. ASSAf issues a call for nominations for ASSAf membership annually. Once the deadline is passed, the applications are internally screened for completeness and assigned to one of 3 membership advisory committees, the members of which review the nominations and CVs and recommend the candidates to the ASSAf Council for inclusion on the ballot. The Council decides on the final ballot, which is then circulated to all ASSAf members to vote on. So this is indeed a peer nomination or election into the Academy. So it is my pleasure to now introduce each new member for 2021. Our first member is Professor Heidi Abramson, who is the Director of the Laser Research Center, University of Johannesburg, and the DST NRF Saatchi Chair for Laser Applications in Health. Professor Catherine Albertine is Professor of Law and the Saatchi Research Chair in Equality, Law and Social Justice in the School of Law, University of the Witwatersrand. Professor Colleen Aldous is a Professor in Genetics in the College of Health Sciences at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Professor Harun Borat is a Professor of Economics and Director of the Development Policy Research Unit at the University of Cape Town. Professor Erwin Brown is Head of Department and Professor of Information Systems at the University of Cape Town. Professor Justine Burns is Head of School of Economics at the University of Cape Town. Professor Christian Chimimba is a former head in the Department of Zoology and Entomology, University of Pretoria, an associate of the Mammal Research Institute, and a core team member of the Center of Excellence for Invasion Biology. Professor Shadrach Chirikure is a Professor of Archaeology Director of the African Heritage Hub and Research Center, and Director of the Archaeological Materials Laboratory at the University of Cape Town. Professor Ian Cooper is Director of the Ukwanda Center for Rural Health and Professor of Rural Health in the Department of Global Health, Stellenbosch University. Professor Mary Ann Davies is a Public Health Medicine Specialist in the Western Cape Department of Health and Director of the Center of Infectious Disease Epidemiology and Research at the University of Cape Town. Professor Anton du Plessis is an Associate Professor at Stellenbosch University and is also affiliated with Nelson Mandela University and the Central University of Technology as Visiting Professor. Professor Tulio de Oliveira is a Professor of Bioinformatics at the School of Data Science and Computational Thinking, Stellenbosch University, and Director of the Center for Epidemic Response and Innovation in South Africa. Professor David Everett is a Professor of Urban Governance at the University of the Witwatersrand School of Governance. Professor Willem Fouché is at present Emeritus Professor at the Department of Decision Sciences at the University of South Africa. Professor Kirsten Jordan is a Professor in the Department of Decision Sciences at the University of South Africa. Prof. Jan Kriek is a full Professor at the Department of Physics at the University of South Africa. Dr. Glenda Chris is the Executive Head of the Center for Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators at the Human Sciences Research Council. Professor Xingying Liu is a full Professor at the Institute for Development of Energy for African Sustainability, a research institute at the University of South Africa. Professor Rasigan Maharaj is the Node Head of the DST-NRF Center of Excellence in Scientometrics and STI Policy, Chief Director of the Institute for Economic Research on Innovation at the Tshwane University of Technology, and Associate Research Fellow of the TELUS Institute. Professor James Minor is Professor of Civil Engineering at the University of Pretoria and Adjunct Professor at Change and University in Xi'an, sorry, am I pronouncing that wrong, China, as well as Shandong Jiangsu University in Shandong, China. Professor Madipwane Masenya is a Professor of Old Testament Studies attached to the Department of Biblical and Ancient Studies at the University of Pretoria. Sorry, at the University of South Africa. Professor Salome Maswime is an Associate Professor and Head of the Global Surgery Division at the University of Cape Town, an obstetrician and gynecologist. Professor Koleka Mlisana is the Executive Manager, Academic Affairs, Research and Quality Assurance at the National Health Laboratory Services. Professor Mosa Moshabela holds the position of Full Professor and Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation in an acting capacity at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Professor Shireen Mutala is a Professor in the Faculty of Education at the University of Johannesburg. The Saatchi Chair in Teaching and Learning is located within this Faculty of Education. Professor Ntobeko Ntusi is a cardiologist and a Professor of Medicine and Chair and Head of Medicine at the University of Cape Town and Groote Hospital. He's the Clinical Lead for Cardiovascular Magnetic Resonance at UCT and Groote Hospital. Professor Marlene Pirtus is Professor of Nutrition at the Northwest University and serves as Director of the South African Medical Research Council Extramural Unit, Hypertension and Cardiovascular Disease Research. Professor Norma Rom is a Research Professor in the Department of Adult Education and Youth Development at the University of South Africa. Professor Akshay Saha is an Associate Professor and Academic Leader, Research and Higher Degrees at the School of Engineering, University of KwaZulu-Natal. Professor Samantha Sampson is Professor in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, Stellenbosch University. Professor Sibusiso Sifunda is a Chief Research Specialist in the Human and Social Capabilities Research Program of the Human Sciences Research Council. Professor Ruth Stewart is a Director of the Africa Center for Evidence at the University of Johannesburg and the Chairperson of the Africa Evidence Network. Professor David Swanepoel is a Professor in the Department of Speech Language Pathology and Audiology, University of Pretoria, and Senior Research Fellow at the Ear Science Institute in Australia. Professor Peter Taylor, is Professor in Zoology and Entomology Department and Afro-Montane Research Unit, University of the Free State, Kwakwa Campus. Professor Andrew Thatcher is Chair of Industrial and Organizational Psychology at the University of the Witwatersrand. Professor Bekisipo Twala is the Executive Dean of Engineering and Built Environment and Professor in Artificial Intelligence and Data Science at the Durban University of Technology. Professor Jean-Paul van Bell is Professor in the Department of Information Systems at the University of Cape Town. Professor Ashley van Niekerk is Professor at the University of South Africa, Institute for Social and Health Sciences. Professor Mariki Venter heads the Zoonotic, Arbo, and Respiratory Virus Program and co-founded the Center for Viral Zoonosis, Department of Medical Virology, University of Pretoria, where she is full professor. Professor Samantha Weiss is a distinguished professor in the Department of Philosophy at the University of the Witwatersrand. Professor Gerhard Waltz leads the Stellenbosch University Immunology Research Group. Professor Leslie Wood is a research professor in the Faculty of Education at Northwest University and director of a research entity, Community-Based Educational Research. Professor Patrick Vogt is Professor of Astronomy and head of the Department of Astronomy at the University of Cape Town. So I will now read the membership pledge that all new members have signed. Had we been in person, I would have read the pledge and all of the new members would have said, I do, but here goes. I hereby promise to promote the well-being of South Africa through scientific thought and generally to further the objectives of the Academy of Science of South Africa as far as this lies in my power, and I shall also observe the prescribed constitution and prescribed standing orders, regulations of the Academy, as long as I remain a member thereof. I would like to now ask the all of the members to applaud our new members. Please, if you could just switch on your cameras and applaud the new members in the first instance. And secondly, I'd like to extend a sincere appreciation to all of our ministerial membership advisory committees for all of the hard work in assessing and recommending the new members to council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sabia, for doing that task. I'm not sure if we could give the new members an opportunity to come put their videos on so we can see them all. My screen is only showing me a short version. But in any event, we're running ahead of time. All I want to say to the new members, congratulations on this accolade. As Professor Isaac has said, it is not an easy way to get to this point. It goes through various hurdles of scrutiny. And yes, now that you've taken the pledge, remember, I have your name, I have your number, and I know where you stay. So I will be on the hunt to find you, so that I hold you responsible to the pledge. Becoming a member of the Academy is not just to add to your CV, but it is a system of being able to volunteer your time, your expertise in the support of all Academy activities. I say this over and over again. The Academy is not the Secretariat. The Academy is made up of its members. You hold a very prestigious position in society, and we need to live by what academies stand for. We've heard Prof. Serageldin give us a very a great introduction into the historical build-up into what academies are and how members of academies need to be held accountable. Well, not held accountable, but need to rise to the occasion in support of issues of national and global relevance. So colleagues, I am so pleased to welcome you to the ASSAf family. We will have a proper induction with you on Tuesday afternoon, where I will, together with the General Secretary, give you some window of scope into the Academy. But at the same time, we welcome you to visit our website, and to all members participating. We put out a quarterly newsletter. This last issue we tried to revamp, and I would welcome contributions from members to feature in our newsletter. It's not my newsletter, it's our newsletter. It belongs to all of us. And when we work together and we share information, that's when we can build the networks and bridges Professor Serageldin talked about, between disciplines and with colleagues, and get to a better state of being able to collaborate on various issues. So welcome on board, and I'm really looking forward to having the opportunities of engaging with you all. Now, according to the program, we are, as I said, running a little bit ahead of time, but let's just take a 5-minute instead of a 10-minute comfort break, and then we will resume the program at, well, I'll add a few more minutes, at 7 o'clock. But please stay linked on, don't go away, because my colleagues are going to put in a little bit of an insert to allow you to get a little bit more of an insight into some of stuff that we do. So please hang in there, and we will resume the program at exactly 7 p.m. So take the time to just relax a bit. Use the chat if you want to send messages and say hello to people. And we will resume the program at 7. Thank you so much. Henriette Wagner and Renata Venier, my A-team, who have put together this wonderful trip down memory lane. Colleagues, I cannot tell you how appreciative I am of the two of them who work behind the scene tirelessly in bringing us these sorts of presentations without a budget, but with love and care and passion for what they do. I really, really appreciate you guys and what you do to bring honor to the Academy. What a lovely trip down memory lane. I recall, nostalgically, the trip down, looking at the past winners, and especially my former mentor, Professor Trevor Jenkins, who together with Professor Makoba were the first winners of this prestigious gold medal award. But before I get carried away with the gold medal, I am now also very, very privileged to introduce the sitting EXCO SciAS members, the South African Young Academy of Science. And I say this so because I was part and parcel of the inaugural meeting of SciAS. 10 years ago, they came together and celebrated their 10th anniversary this year. But I'm sure Professor Willie Chinyamurindi and Dr. Mari Manjoro, who are the co-chairs, are going to tell us a little bit more about SciAS and introduce their new members to us. So over to you, Willie and Mari.
Good evening, colleagues, and thank you for the opportunity, Prof, for that introduction about the work that we do as the South African Young Academy of Science. I am extremely honored to be here and to talk about this family that I belong to and have belonged to in the last couple of years, and assuming a leadership position has always been a privilege, but also daunting because you're leading people, some very smart people for that matter. And one of the things that I was reflecting with my colleague, Dr. Marijukuru Manjoro from the University of Venda, is how time has gone by so fast, but at the same time, is this reflection around how the energy levels are so low because it's right at the end of the year. And I remember a trip to Kenya where somebody showed me a pool of water that all of a sudden sprung to life because of the entrance of a little tributary that was flowing into this big pool of water. And the point, or the lesson point here, was we need events like this to just surge us on, to encourage us to have that extra little bit of energy to help us to continue going forward. And this rejuvenation becomes, particularly for us as scientists, to also see new members joining our ranks with new ideas, and also to continue further the work that others would have started. So the South African Young Academy of Science, as I mentioned earlier on, has been very active, founded in 2011, really to be this platform through which young scientists not only flourish, but have a voice concerning the work that they do. And what we seek to do is obviously to support our parent company or parent organization, ASSAf, by particularly addressing those challenges that are facing society. Our aim really is not to deviate from the program of ASSAf, but to really heighten and also increase the efficacy and the strength to which this program gets fulfilled, particularly with the activity base that we are engaged in. Each year we have the privilege of introducing 10 new members to the community that we belong to. And our selection criteria is based on academic merit, the enthusiasm to engage in science, particularly from the different disciplines that we have. colleagues, you will appreciate that the disciplines are broad. So we are taking from different fields, from the arts and humanities, the social sciences, the natural, the STEM. We're looking for a broad array of disciplines to be able to select from as part of this cohort of young scientists that we put into our body. The next thing that we then do is we work, and this is an appreciation to the great work that the Secretariat does to support our work. We can mention our colleague Kolani, who's been very active, despite the challenges that he has gone through in the past year, but the Secretariat provided by ASSAf has been very instrumental in also assisting through the work that we do. We also like to pay homage and appreciation to particularly the continued investment that they make towards the work of SIRES. One of the things that we've sought to do in this year or in the past year is to find ways in which we can also become self-sustaining. Instead of just coming to our parent company every time to say we need money for this project, we are also in a position where we are now receiving funding of our own, applying for grants, and successfully receiving this funding to be able to do the work that we do as the young scientists. Our strategic goals are fourfold: to advance scientific excellence, influence science policy, find a way through which this this mandate of science gets translated to society and promoting science awareness, and also making sure there's value add in terms of the programming that we do. So we then have launched what we call working groups, and these working groups consist of members, and we're hoping all of our members who will be introduced to you tonight by my colleague, Dr. Manjoro, will be able to join a working group where they can also find way to contribute and work with others in achieving the work of the science community or the young scientists. These are some of the projects that we've been engaged in. Some of the exciting things of the work we do is when you get a call from teachers and people in the community to say, we need a speaker to come and talk to our high school students, or we need some form of resourcing to try and help our students. We've also been actively involved in assisting postgraduate students, especially during the period of the pandemic. Funding of our own. We have a project where we have a book which is coming out sometime next year around the impact of COVID on the work of young scientists. So our work is broad, and we are looking forward to welcoming the next cohort of young scientists to our community, and hoping that they also can be part of this process of rejuvenation and taking us further to the great work that we've already started. I now give over to my colleague, Dr. Marishukuru Manjoro, to introduce the new cohort of the South African Young Academy of Science.
Please unmute Marie.
Thank you, Prof, for this opportunity, and we appreciate, as usual, ASSAf for the opportunity that you give us. Much appreciation to Willie for laying the background tonight, and a pleasant day to everyone, all protocol observed. On behalf of SIRES, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the new SIRES members this evening. I hope we are all seeing my screen.
Yes, coming through clearly. Thank
you. Is my
you.
Screen visible?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. Okay. So our first member is Dr. Natasha Dukey, who is a senior research specialist at the Human Sciences Research Council in South Africa. The field of specialization is public health, health promotion, nutrition, child and adolescent health. Next is Dr. Joshua Edokpai, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Earth Sciences from the University of Venda in South Africa. The field of specialization includes environmental sciences, and in this case, more specifically, water resource management, environmental pollution and monitoring, environmental and public health. We do have Prof. Kapil Gupta, who is an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical and Industrial Engineering Technology at the University of Johannesburg. Field of specialization is advanced manufacturing. We do have Dr. Michelle Lonkanka, who is a senior lecturer or principal investigator for the Rubin Observatory with a joint position between the University of the Western Cape and the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory. Field of specialization is astronomy and cosmology, machine learning. Next is Prof. David Lockhart, who is an associate professor in the School of Engineering at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Field of specialization is chemical reaction engineering, process intensification. We also have Prof. Monyema Belebele, an associate professor in the Department of Agriculture and Animal Health at the University of South Africa. Field of specialization is animal science, animal nutrition, and health. Next is Dr. Mushwani Jack Madito, a senior lecturer in the Institute for Nanotechnology and Water Sustainability at the University of South Africa. His field of specialization is advanced electrochemical capacitors for energy management, nanocomposites, nuclear material, and solid state interactions. Next is Prof. Tashree Marimoto, an associate professor in the Department of Pharmacy and Pharmacology at the University of the Witwatersrand. Specialization is chemistry and pharmaceutical chemistry. We do have Dr. Spiwe Emmanuel Mhlongo, a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Science, Engineering and Agriculture of the University of Venda. Field of specialization include mine closure and rehabilitation, abandoned mines, environmental geology, mine environment control or management. We also have Prof. Nandine Ngulu, a professor of electrical engineering and the director of the Center for Cyber Physical Food, Energy and Water Systems at the University of Johannesburg. Field of specialization is food, energy and water systems, power systems, mathematical modeling and optimization, machine learning. After saying the 10 members, we are honored to have you today, and in joining the Academy, we kindly request all of you to show your video so that we can upload and celebrate with you. Thank you very much. You are most welcome to join the Academy. We are privileged to have you tonight. Thank you very much, Prof. Yimla.
Wow, wow, wonderful. Welcome, welcome, young scholars. You know, one of the pleasures of being the executive officer of the Academy is having the opportunity to engage with the SAIAS sitting members and the alumni. As I said, it's been a personal journey for me to have been part and parcel of the process of inducting SIAS members from the first instant, and being able to follow all of you over the years. We had a wonderful celebration of your 10th year anniversary, and we got to hear from some of the alumni. And colleagues, what I can say to you is you guys are the champions of how you manage new technologies, how you engage, the rate at which you respond with the efficiency at which you do it. I mean, the SAGE grant and activity that you have is an example of the responsiveness that you have to swiftly respond to things that are going on in our society. I don't think we as the academy, the senior academy, can do it as well as you do. I want to congratulate every single one of you. And I know that as you get the baton from your previous colleagues, they are still there to support you. So take advantage of those linkages. And once again, I welcome you into our family of the Academy. And we hope to see many of you, jump from being members of SIAS into the Senior Academy. We appreciate your role. We appreciate your enthusiasm for addressing national challenges, the way in which you engage with scholars across the African continent and also on the international arena. We applaud all of you because again, it's not an easy way of becoming a member of the Young Academy. And I can reassure you that your co-chairs currently are there to guide you, because the way they respond to me, I'm sure they will show you the equal respect and bring you on board on a journey that will take you into the realms of how you become a player on the national system of innovation. You're at the cusp of your own journeys where we know that you are loaded with teaching and research and other responsibilities, trying to build your own careers. But at the same time, you find the time to do common good, to contribute to society at large. And I really, really applaud every single one of you for giving unstintingly of your time in building the young leadership who would become the leaders of our next generations. So congratulations to every single one of you. And as we grow together, we walk the same path, and whatever we can do from the secretariat side and me as executive officer, please know that we are there to support you. So congratulations to all of you, and we wish you onward an exceptional journey as you grow into these portfolios. Take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to that epic moment that we've been waiting for. Henriette, can I have a drum roll, please? I was planning this to have this drum roll for two reasons. One, to welcome Professor Stephanie Burton, our Vice President, and person who's going to take us through the next section of the program. And that is to announce the winners of the prestigious ASSAf Gold Medal. But I do not want to steal the thunder of Professor Burton. So assuming you can hear the drum roll, Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Himla, and good evening, everybody. It is a real honor to be requested to introduce our Gold Medal awardees for 2021. Let me just say a little about the award. The ASSAf Science for Society Gold Medal Award is an annual award. It was established by the Academy in 2002 with the purpose of recognizing outstanding members of the Academy who have applied scientific thinking for the benefit of society. All areas of science and scholarly work are considered, and every year we can award up to 2 medals. We consider scientific and scholarly achievements in a number of areas aligned with the objectives of ASSAf. such as inspiring and promoting excellence in scientific and technical practice and presenting relevant role models in society, or using the common ground of scientific knowledge and activity to remove barriers between people and to enable people to fully develop their intellectual capacity. We also recognize achievements in the investigation and public reporting of matters in order to promote scientific thinking in the service of society. And we've heard this evening, never has that been a more important achievement. And in fact, our awardees this evening speak to that achievement as well. We also recognize promoting science education and a culture of science in our communities, again, critical at this time. And we recognize the establishing and developing of close relations with other scientific organizations in South Africa and other countries. The first gold medals were awarded in 2003 to Professors Malagaburo Makgoba and Trevor Jenkins. Since 2003, over 30 of our most eminent scientists have received the ASSAf Gold Medals. You will find their names on our website, and if you were watching a little earlier, we had a wonderful display of those big players in our academy. Tonight, we are awarding the gold medal to 2 more outstanding members of the academy. The 2021 gold medals are awarded to Professor Shiba Mahdi and Professor Barry Schub. I am going to now call on 2 of our members of the academy to read citations, after which the medal winners will be invited to say a few words. So let me now call on Professor Lynn Morris to read the citation for Professor Shiba Mahdi, and after that, Professor Mahdi will be invited to speak. Professor Morris, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. This really gives me great pleasure to read the citation for Professor Shiba Mahdi and to congratulate him. Just to say that this nomination was made also on behalf with Zeblon Vilakazi and Wolfgang Preiser, who I think is also on the call. And let me also take this opportunity to congratulate Barry Schub on this joint award. This certainly feels like an NICD reunion. And I think it really, I just want to use this opportunity to say that we recognize the critical role of science-led public health institutions. And I think that's been particularly, evident as well during COVID. But on to Shiba. So Professor Shiba Mahdi is an NRF A-rated South African researcher of global standing. He has been conducting clinical and epidemiology research for 25 years, with a specific focus on the clinical and molecular epidemiology and prevention of pneumonia, meningitis, neonatal sepsis, and diarrheal disease. He is an outstanding example of the application of scientific thinking in the service of society. Shiba is Professor of Vaccinology and Director of the South African Medical Research Council Vaccines and Infectious Diseases Analytics Research Unit. Short name of that is WITS Vida, because it's based at University of the Witwatersrand. And in January 2021, Shiba was appointed the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of the Witwatersrand, where he and I are colleagues. And here's a bit of an interesting fact about Shiba. So born in 1966, Shiba initially aspired to become an engineer, but his bursary conditions only allowed him to study medicine, and thank goodness for that. In 1990, he completed his undergraduate training at WITS, and 6 years later, he became a fellow of the College of Pediatrics. During this time, he applied for a post under Professor Keith Klugman to work on vaccines for pneumonia. And in 1998, he received a master's degree in medicine in pediatrics and a PhD in 2003. So Shiba was the executive director of South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases, or the NICD, from 2011 to 2017, where he was my boss, and has served on several World Health Organization committees in roles related to vaccines and pneumonia. In 2018, he co-founded the African Leadership in Vaccinology Expertise, or it's called ALIVE. So in the past, he's led studies on pneumococcal conjugate vaccines and rotavirus vaccines in Africa, which informed WHO recommendations on the use of these vaccines in low and middle income countries. And more recently, he's led studies on clinical development of influenza, Group B streptococcus and respiratory syncytial virus vaccines for pregnant women aimed at protection of mother-infant dyad. And I think many of you will know that work that was published in NEJM. And of course, most recently, he led the first 2 COVID-19 vaccine studies of the AstraZeneca and the Novavax vaccines. And these were the first 2 studies undertaken in Africa. And then, of course, he's been involved in multiple epidemiological studies on COVID-19 in South Africa. And amazingly, he's co-authored more than 500 scientific manuscripts since 1997, mainly on vaccine preventable diseases. So sometimes I think there must be 2 Shabirs, because it's kind of hard to imagine that one person can do all of this. It's really quite an exceptional effort and amount of work. But I'm very pleased now to invite Shabir, the real Shabir, to give us a short acceptance speech. Thanks, Shabir.
Thank you, Prof. Morris, and good evening, colleagues, fellow ASSAf members. Good evening, Prof. Burton, Prof. Sudhal, and Prof. Morris, thank you for those kind words. And there really is only one Shabir. It's a real pleasure, firstly, it's an honor for me, firstly, to be part of ASSAf, and a further honor to be able to join the likes of the many other worthy recipients of this award in the past, as well as together with Prof. Schub today. So as Prof. Morris has mentioned, it is difficult to conceptualize one person doing so much work, but the reality is not about a single person. Certainly the success of my own research unit wouldn't be possible without the tremendous team that I've been able to put together over the past 26 years. And this award is really a recognition of a team effort rather than an individual effort. I've been fortunate that in the past 26 years, we've been able to engage in a huge amount of capacity development, leading to the establishment of a research unit that is really internationally recognized for its work, most recently in the field of COVID-19, but I think the legacy of the unit and its contribution that it has made to the health, and particularly to the health of children on the African continent, actually is in relation to the many other vaccines that we very much were at the forefront in its clinical development, as well as characterizing the epidemiology of those diseases. And those include vaccines against pneumonia, diarrheal disease. At the time when we embarked on this research, there was almost no research in that field on the African continent. And it is because of the work that we did in South Africa at what was previously the Respiratory and Meningeal Pathogen Research Unit, and more recently renamed VIDA, that we were able to undertake studies which allowed WHO to make recommendations for the use and implementation of those life-saving vaccines on the continent. And like I mentioned, that certainly wouldn't have been an individual effort, but rather testimony to the tremendous team that have been able to come together and continue to do amazing work. Finally, I think it's also important to recognize that almost all of the work that we do simply wouldn't be possible. It simply wouldn't be possible without the spirit of Ubuntu, which the community of Soweto demonstrates. Their willingness to participate in the clinical research, their willingness to assist us, the willingness to actually allow us to engage in the community is really what helps us to be able to make a difference to people in South Africa, to the children in South Africa, as well as on the African continent. So with those few words, once again, thanks for the honor of being bestowed this award, and good evening.
Thank you very much, Professor Morris and Professor Mahdi. Hearty congratulations. I'd now like to call on Professor Salim Abdul Karim to read the citation for Professor Barry Schub's award, and then after that we will hear from Professor Schub. So Salim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Burton. It's indeed a great honor and a privilege for me to be with you here this evening to congratulate both Professors Schub and Mahdi, both of whom I've known for many, many years. I think as I reflect on all of their accomplishments, it's indeed particularly poignant that ASSAf has chosen to recognize and acknowledge the contributions of 2 individuals who have led, in the case of Professor Schub, even created our country's national public health institution to respond to epidemics. So let me read the citation for Professor Schub. Professor Barry Schub is an internationally renowned virologist who has had a truly impressive impact on viral diseases and vaccination, not only in South Africa, but also in Africa and indeed globally. He obtained his undergraduate medical degree at Wits University in 1967, and in 1977, he received the US Public Health Service International Postdoc Fellowship and was subsequently the first recipient of the James Gear International Postdoc Fellowship. In 1978, he was appointed as the first professor and head of the Department of Virology at Wits University at the tender age of 33. He was the director of the National Institute of Virology, and subsequently in 2002, he created the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, serving as its founding executive director until 2011. He is widely recognized as a world leader in virology. His exceptional track record of high-impact publications on viral vaccines have made critically important scientific contributions to the development of novel poliovirus vaccines and rotavirus vaccines. He also played a key role in the local manufacture of poliovirus vaccines in South Africa. He served as the initial chair of the Polio Expert Committee and led the scientific board of the Poliomyelitis Research Foundation, which built the depth of expertise we have in South Africa in the field of virology. He also spearheaded the establishment of the South African Field and Epidemiology Laboratory Training Program, which prepares field epidemiologists to, amongst others, investigate outbreaks. Professor Schub has served as a member of several local and international bodies, including as an advisor to the World Health Organization programs on polio, measles, respiratory syncytial virus, and influenza. He was also a member of the WHO's Advisory Committee on Poliomyelitis Eradication and on the interim board of the International Society of Influenza and Respiratory Viruses. He created and served as the founding chair of the National Advisory Group on Immunization of South Africa. That's the organization that defines our vaccination policy. And he is currently the chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19 vaccines that's guiding South Africa's vaccination program. He is undoubtedly a world-class scientist who has consistently used his energy, talents, and scientific prowess to combat diseases, build capacity, and promote health in South Africa, and more broadly, especially in relation to pandemic preparedness. South Africa, and indeed Africa, is so fortunate to have a virologist of Professor Schub's caliber, a humble and truly outstanding servant of science. As we heard so eloquently from my good friend and colleague Ismail Sir Geldin, academies have a critical role to play in making science available for evidence-based policy. In this regard, Professor Schub is a shining example of science for society that we should all strive to follow. It is my honor to congratulate Professor Schub as an exceptional and deserving candidate of the ASSAf Science for Society Gold Medal Award. Congratulations.
Over to you, Professor Schub.
Good evening, Professor Jansen, Professor Burton, Professor Subial. Good evening to colleagues. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great pleasure, privilege as a member of the Academy, and really to express my appreciation, my gratitude to the Academy for bestowing on me its Apex Award, the Science for Society Gold Medal. It really is an incredible honor, and of course, I am deeply, deeply grateful. Let me also extend my congratulations to my co-awardee, Professor Mahdi, my successor, in fact, as the director of the NICD. Secondly, it is with immense gratitude that I'd like to acknowledge Professor Salim Abdul Karim, who nominated me for the award, and I cannot but say a few personal words about Professor Abdul Karim. and I hope you'll forgive me for doing so. I have been especially privileged to have worked with Professor Abdul Karim as a fellow colleague and also as a close and dear friend for over a quarter of a century. It has indeed been a very special privilege working alongside him on a number of initiatives and programs which we worked on together, on which he mentioned in the citation, and also serving together with him on the bodies of several organizations. Professor Abdul Karim occupies the very pinnacle of scientific achievement in South Africa. He is the giant of biomedical sciences in this country, and it is indeed a great honor that he's read my citation for me. He has made some of the most significant and valuable biomedical advances in scientific research internationally, but also with far-reaching benefits to public health in South Africa. But over and above this, he has taken our science to an even higher level. He has imbued into our science something of tremendous value, an ethic and a morality. And it's really this aspect of science in particular, which I'd like now to focus on, as I believe that this is the focus of the Gold Medal Awards, a science for society. May I start by raising a fundamental question which has been asked of scientists before and which is now so pertinent today in the COVID-19 era. And that is there a role for morality in science? In posing this question, I would ask us to step back and reflect on whether our science is, in fact, consummating its responsibilities to society. Are we adequately imbuing our science with meaning and value? Why I'm reflecting and pondering on these questions is because it is specifically in the biomedical sciences where the trust of society is so intrinsically crucial, and where, despite the excellence of our science, we may be failing somewhat. 21st century technology has created extremely powerful and pervasive weapons of communication in the forms of social media. Sean Otto has so powerfully articulated the dangers and the risks of social media in his book, The War on Science. The 21st century has certainly spawned a very significant, a very vocal, and often a very hostile lobby of opponents to science. Nowhere has this phenomena been more challenging than what has mushroomed in the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not too surprising given that COVID has been, in our lifetime, the biggest disruptor of our lives. The infusion of politics and financial interests into the realm of science is by no means new, but it has, I feel now, reached unprecedented levels during COVID. But is it only Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram which have fueled anti-vaccination, anti-masking, chloroquine, and ivermectin? Or maybe is there something else? We do need to critically examine why have such large tracts of society lost their trust in science. Is our focus on productivity perhaps attenuating our responsibilities and our obligations to society? What has also come to the fore in the COVID pandemic is the tragedy of global inequity, driven by financial and political agendas, with perhaps the starkest example being the global vaccine inequities and vaccine hoarding by high-income countries. As the WHO Secretary General, Dr. Tedros, alarmingly warned us earlier this year that we could be facing a catastrophic moral failure. Is it an unrealistic dream that for the future, mechanisms could be instituted to have vaccines not treated as commercial commodities in the global marketplace? Or is this just a dream? How could science and scientists play a role in the quagmire of political, financial, and social interests? I would like to suggest that whatever science we are doing, it needs to be predicated with a simple one-word question: why? Whatever scientific endeavor it is, it needs to be supplemented and enriched with a values quality, a quality of its meaningfulness to the society we serve. We can lift science to be a virtuous as well as a utilitarian pursuit. Finally, I'd again like to salute and congratulate our Academy for creating its Apex Award, its gold medal, to serve as recognition for the achievements of science for the benefit of society. I'm deeply grateful for having honored me with this very, very prestigious award. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Barry, and congratulations. I think, colleagues and friends, that you will agree with me that both of these awards are really, truly well-deserved for outstanding members of our Academy. They are both, as has been said, shining examples of how leaders in our scientific world can influence and promote the culture of science and benefit society through what they are offering and through their work. Those were very deep words that we heard from all of these leaders this evening, and I certainly will take back some of those messages and think about what we've heard this evening from our awardees. I'm sure I speak for all of the members of the Academy, and especially the ASSAf Council, in offering our heartiest congratulations to our 2021 Gold Medal winners. Thank you very much for all of those words and for all of your views. And I'm now going to hand over to Professor Eugene Kluter to give the vote of thanks. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations to our two gold medal awardees. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Jonathan Jansen, other members of council, and then everyone that attended tonight's illustrious event. Thank you very much for taking time out to attend this event. It's always a highlight of ASSAf, and I want to thank all of you for being here. I also want to acknowledge and congratulate all the new ASSAf and SAYAS members, and especially our two gold medal awardees, Professor Mahdi and Professor Barry Schub. Well done and well deserved. I would also like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Ismail Serageldin, for his presentation. Excellent presentation, a lot for us to think about. And again, thank you very much for the trouble and for the effort that you put into making the presentation so insightful. Last but not least, I also want to acknowledge our outgoing council member, Professor Norman Duncan, who has resigned with effect from the end of the year. Thank you very much, Professor Duncan, for the contributions that you have made while member of the ASSAf Council. And I also would very much like to thank the staff of ASSAf and the organizers of this event. Doing an event like this has many challenges. We all know that now. Going online and having to deal with technology poses particular challenges, and I think you did a great job to make this event a success. So with those words, I thank again all of you for being here, and I wish you a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues, for sitting out this awards evening with us. Wow, what an exceptional evening, even if I were to say so. From the inspirational keynote address from Professor Ismail Sir Geldin to the very, very inspiring words from our gold medalists. The common denominator to them both, aside from their excellence and in what they do, is how humble they are. They pay tribute to others before they take recognition for themselves. And that is really, really noteworthy. But having said all of that, once again, congratulations to Shabir and Barry. I mean, it's been an exceptional journey. We know how much you are called on by the media. We see you in our homes. We've become familiar with the rooms from where you conduct your interviews. And you bring a sense of truth to all of us as we deliberate issues around the COVID pandemic. So thank you very, very much. And thank you also to the nominators who took the time to put together the paperwork, not only for the new members of the Academy and SAYAS, but also for the gold medalists. Colleagues, this has been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to have this engagement. And hopefully circumstances change by the time we roll into the next year so that we could host this event, in a face-to-face way. And I've said this before, but I want to say that if there were any downsides in blips of connectivity, we apologize for that. Professor Jansen asked me to particularly bring that to your attention. There were a few issues in the transmission, but as we know, we are all sitting in different parts of the country, and connectivity issues do somewhat come in to kind of break issues. But of course, this has been an in-house production, and thanks ever so much to Henriette and Renata for taking this on, for producing the presentations, and of course the booklet, which I am told all people who registered got. So you'd have got all the details that have been presented. And if anyone has not received it, please get in touch with our office by way of engaging with Renata, and we'd be happy to share that. Thank you to all the people who participated in the presentations and the hosting of the various activities. Our General Secretary, Professor Isaac, Vice President, Professor Stephanie Burton, and our Treasurer, Eugene Kluter. It's a wonderful occasion in bringing it all together, and I really, really thank you all. Colleagues, have a good rest of the evening. Please, 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 please engage with our website. Please send us submissions of things that you would like to share about what you are doing so we can include that in our newsletter. That is like my new baby. I want our newsletter to be a source of resourcefulness about profiling our members of the Academy. Thank you ever so much. Have a good day forward, and until we meet again, all the best. Cheers. Bye for now.